I'm Craig Kenneth, a relationship coach and a psychotherapist. Every relationship is different and every breakup is different. Work with me and you'll get professional help on your situation. And if you're in no contact, focused on personal growth, my workbook series, The Knowledge, will help you make changes like you've never made before. Available now at AskCraig.net. Hi there, I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
I'm Coach Margaret.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And today we're going to be talking about understanding narcissism. You know, there's a lot of information and a lot of talk about narcissists. Right. And so many people are quick to diagnose their ex a narcissist after a breakup because they're so upset about how selfish they're acting, or they're making everything about themselves and kind of putting your feelings aside and how they're handling things. Right. But it goes a lot deeper than that, okay? And we're going to really explore this today because Margaret's got some great information.
Right. There is a lot to say on the subject for just the reason that Craig explains. This term is being tossed around now. It's been around forever, but it's being used, and I think we've done some pretty serious research on it now. So the first thing I'm going to let you know is what are the diagnostic criteria for diagnosing someone as narcissist. And there are nine criteria. You need 5 of them to be a real narcissist. Mm-hmm. Okay? All right. So number 1, you have grandiose fantasies and behavior, such as preoccupation with thoughts of personal success, power, attractiveness, or sex appeal. Okay? So I'm the most wonderful thing in the world. Okay? Mm-hmm. Little or no empathy for other people's emotions or feelings, which of course is what gets these folks into trouble with relationships.
And it's also hard because how would you distinguish this from somebody who has more of an avoidant attachment style?
Very difficult. A significant need for attention, admiration, and recognition. Right? Now, there are some people, and I was just thinking about this, if you talk to them for a few minutes, they may be perfectly pleasant and so forth, but after about 10 minutes of talking about any subject, it goes back to them, their lives, their interests, their ambitions, okay? That's a good way to begin to think about somebody. If they really only have one subject, which is themselves, then that's a good sign. Okay, a significant need for attention, admiration, and recognition. An inflated sense of self-importance, such as a tendency to exaggerate personal talent and achievements. A belief in personal specialness and superiority. A sense of entitlement. Now that's another term that gets tossed around a lot. Entitlement really means that you feel like the world, the universe owes you special favors, special treatment, and that you're entitled to all the good things in life, whether you work for them or not. Okay, you're so wonderful, you're entitled to them. Entitlement gets thrown around a lot too. A tendency to take advantage of others, to exploit people for personal gain. All right? We all know users. Arrogant or conceited behavior or attitudes. All right? If I say it's this way, it's this way. Mm-hmm. A tendency to envy others and believe others envy them. You'll hear a narcissist say, well, everyone is jealous of me all of the time because of my wonderfulness.
I've heard somebody say that it's hard to have friends because everyone's so intimidated by this person.
By my wonderfulness? Yes, yeah.
Meanwhile, ask everybody that knows them.
Yeah, right, yeah.
No, that's not why we're not.
Oh, God.
Now, some symptoms are charming and some are not, and as you can readily see, narcissistic symptoms are not particularly charming. Okay?
No, but I remember even in grad school, my professor saying, if you meet people that are charming, it's a big red flag for her.
I'm going to tell a very old joke that used to be actually on an ad, and it's a very kind of grandiose sounding man talking with a woman. It sounds like they're on a date. And finally he says to her, enough about me, let's talk about what you think about me. Okay? Narcissism is a personality disorder. There are 10 personality disorders, okay? You don't hear about them all very often. The two most common ones are narcissistic and borderline, okay? And it's a legitimate diagnosis, like it's in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. Now, when we talk about attachment styles, they are not diagnoses. They're just ways we have discovered to describe things, okay? But this is a real diagnosis. The issue with all personality disorders, all 10 of them, is difficulty with attachment issues and interpersonal relationships. When I was in school in the early 80s,
That's 1680s.
yes, we were told that no personality disorder can successfully be treated with psychotherapy. Well, that would write off a huge number of people in this world. Such people were thought to have little or no capacity or willingness to self-reflect. Now, is it true? In some cases, absolutely. Can it be worked with? Of course. We don't write anybody off. Now, Margaret Mahler, I've probably mentioned her before. She was an Austrian psychiatrist, and she did incredibly detailed research and work on the early life of children from birth forward, okay? In a way we'd never had before. Thanks to her work, we have been able now to better understand the early experiences of those whose early attachment experiences were insufficient or worse. Okay, so we now have a way of kind of understanding where this comes from. Whereas before, I think a lot of people thought it was a moral issue, you know. Both she and John Bowlby began to be known in the literature in the late 1980s. And crazy though it may sound, it takes many years for stuff to get integrated into the field. Okay?
Because I'm sure there's a lot of question about
Oh,
it
of course.
and the validity of it at first.
Absolutely, yep. We do better now than we did in the past in treating the two most common personality disorders, borderline and narcissistic conditions. Both of these diagnoses have had unfortunate descriptions of their willingness to be difficult and to act out in unlikable ways. To be sure, both of these folks are angry. Borderlines act out sometimes with great energy, and narcissists are mean and inconsiderate of others. It's not easy to work with any of them, but it can be done. Okay?
I'm really glad that you brought up the childhood, because I think it can be so easy to build up hate towards these people when they're really just very, very hurt people.
Exactly.
Incredibly hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely right. So we owe a major debt to the people who did this, and I think to Margaret Mahler in particular. Borderline and narcissistic conditions go back to early life and have their roots in the first 2 years of life. Okay? Normal development. We are all born narcissistic because we don't know there's anybody else in the world. We're born narcissistic because we're helpless and need others to meet our needs. The baby eventually learns that there is one consistent figure, usually mother, but certainly it can be dad, who cares for them and feeds them and makes them feel secure and loved. If all of this happens in a good enough way, the baby begins to attach and ultimately falls in love with mother, the person who takes care of them. This is our first experience in caring about another person. For the narcissist, this falling in love with mother does not happen.
That's really important to understand.
Okay? It's extremely important to understand.
That's how early this starts.
Right. Yep.
Imagine not falling in love with your own mother.
Who took care of you, etc., etc. Okay? But it happens, and it happens more frequently than I think we realize. Their needs are not met sufficiently for them to conclude that other people are reliable and can be depended upon. They are angry and disappointed, more than you can imagine, over a lifetime. All right? They do not even learn that they are lovable and start off life with a negative sense of self. Because if your mother doesn't love you, it can't be her fault. Kids always blame themselves. I must not be lovable. The person who turns out to be borderline does a little bit better than the narcissist. The borderline begins to fall in love with mom, but what happens is the process is interrupted way too early for whatever reason. Okay? Now think about the number of things that can happen in families. All kinds of things can happen. You could have another child who's sick. Somebody could get laid off. The rest of your extended family might need to move in. All kinds of crazy things can happen in families that make this kind of stuff happen.
Postpartum depression was one that came up to mind for me.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so the borderline at least starts to fall in love with mom, and then something goes wrong. And they forever look for a relationship that will meet their needs, and have terrible fears of abandonment because they have suffered the ultimate abandonment. They've kind of lost mom for a period. The borderline tries to arrange life around someone else they can love, but have a deflated sense of self and don't think about their own needs much, except when they are abandoned.
And then they become incredibly self-absorbed.
Yes, they do, and angry and do crazy things. All right. The narcissist, on the other hand, now remember, the narcissist never fell in love with mom. The narcissist tries to arrange life around himself, an inflated self, which masks incredible insecurity. The narcissist does not for a minute believe that they are the wonderful person they pretend to be. It's a defense against feeling that you sort of don't exist. All right? If nobody notices you, you kind of feel like you don't exist. The narcissist seeks relationships where they will be doted upon and admired.
It seems like like an overcompensation.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely, for a horrible sense of self. When that does not happen, when they're not doted upon and admired, or if their partner gets tired of it, they become enraged and often end the relationship or will become very angry and mean. Both narcissists and borderlines carry a huge amount of anger about their needs not having been met in childhood. And many times people are appalled at the level of the anger that can be generated by the time you're 2. Okay? And if you've ever seen an angry borderline, you know exactly what I mean. A major feature that borderlines and narcissists have in common is splitting. What that means is that at various points they have seen mother as all good and meeting their needs, or all bad and not meeting their needs at all. Many times people with these personality disorders divide the entire world into good and bad with no gray. Okay, it's black or white, there's no gray. And we've all known people like that. In healthy development, a child learns that they can be angry at mother, but still love her tomorrow. Okay, mom didn't meet your needs today, you were hungry and left in your crib too long, but she will deliver tomorrow and then you'll love her. Part of the treatment for both of these diagnoses is helping people to understand that all human beings are a mix of good traits and imperfect traits, and nobody is all good or all bad. Narcissists appear to function in the world better than borderlines. Their difficulties involve relationships with other people that likely do not become public. Okay? Borderlines are very dramatic, cut themselves, and are often hospitalized for suicidal ideation. So borderlines make all kinds of noise. Narcissists kind of are more quiet about it and keep it a little bit more private. Ultimately, in terms of relationships, borderlines fare a little bit better, okay? Because they at least began to love mom. And you'll never meet an unmotivated borderline. They're very high energy. They're always doing crazy things, but the energy is there to harness. Okay? The narcissist is worse off.
We've seen some very successful borderlines
Absolutely.
in business.
Yep.
And they use that anxiety to drive them.
Right. Turns into energy.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was first learning about this, I found it hard to figure out that the narcissist was worse off than the borderline person, but I certainly understand it now. The narcissist thinks that the rest of the world needs to honor him or change. Borderline women and narcissistic men have been known to find each other. There's a not happy thought. This often proves to be difficult because the woman can never understand why he has no concept of how she feels. And we don't mean to divide the genders crazily. It appears, at least, that there are more narcissistic men than women, but it may just be the state of the art because we know very well there are narcissistic women. And people tend to think of borderlines as being women, but I have met many borderline men. Okay?
Yep.
But that's kind of the common perceptions.
And it can also be hard to diagnose because of what's socially acceptable for men and what's socially acceptable
Absolutely
for
right.
women
Yep.
as far as behavior.
Yep.
So it's something to think about in terms of statistics.
Absolutely. The 3 categories of attachment disorder that we use are not regular DSM diagnoses, but rather descriptions of attachment behavior. I think I said that before. By now, it has occurred to all of us that some of the people we describe as avoidant may well have narcissistic personality disorders, or some variation on the theme. All right? The concept of the Phantom X and the One represent people who can perfectly meet your needs to be adored and catered to. All right? And many avoidant people and many narcissistic people have this fantasy that someone out there is the one who will magically fulfill all of their needs. And there's also the Phantom X, who in retrospect people think was perfect, and something just happened to make it go wrong.
Yep.
All right? To recover, people need to understand their life story on a deep enough level to understand their current behavior. That's not an easy task, okay? And that's what I have to say thus far.
It's a very challenging issue to deal with.
Absolutely.
And, you know, deciding whether or not you're going to stay in a relationship with a narcissist is not an easy decision, nor is it one you should take lightly. Because it could mean you're getting hurt or mistreated.
Absolutely. And I'm going to talk about that further.
In another video?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's a huge decision. And, you know, people use it pejoratively. You're a narcissist. You're a covert narcissist. So these are names that people are calling each other now, really without, you know, the depth to understand. But we'll talk more about that.
And I'm also really glad that you brought out the criteria as far as diagnosis. So for legal reasons, this is not a diagnostic tool, but it is important to go back to what the DSM actually says.
Yes.
This is public knowledge, and I feel like more people should be more aware about mental health and what those diagnoses actually mean.
And you can easily look up any diagnosis on the computer, and you can get the criteria from the DSM.
You could also come across people that do a lot of narcissistic traits, but it doesn't mean that they are a full-blown narcissist.
Right.
So, you know, one of the things that Margaret and I have been talking about recently is how we've noticed that avoidants tend to do some narcissistic traits.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like love bombing.
Like love bombing in the beginning when they're all enthusiastic, yeah. And then when that wears off, they don't care where they leave you.
Yeah.
No.
Hopefully this video has been helpful and gives you a little bit of insight and understanding about narcissists. And, you know, just be careful about being quick to say this person's a narcissist because they were acting selfish or self-absorbed. Not that they might not be, they could be, but I think it gets said a lot more than it really is.
I wish it weren't said so often, yeah.
And what we also see too is people worry that they are narcissists.
And if you worry about that, you can easily look up the criteria. And as I was doing the research on this presentation, there are many articles written about exactly that. If you think you're a narcissist, this is what to do.
All right, good stuff.
All right.
Leave a comment. Let us know what you think about this one. If you enjoyed the topic and you want to see Margaret cover it again. Of course, if you want to get our help personally, just go to my website, askcraig.net. Sign up for the coaching option that works best for you. I do email coaching and I do Skype. Of course, Margaret is available for Skype coaching.
And if I can be helpful to you, please sign up.
Just click on Margaret on the top of the website to do that. And Coach Victoria will continue to be here with us training.
I'll be here.
And soon she'll be doing coaching with us as well. But that's it for this video. I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
I'm Coach Margaret.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And we will talk with you soon. To get my help personally, go to askcraig.net and click on Schedule Coaching and choose the option that works best for you. I do email coaching or Skype. To schedule a coaching with Margaret, click on Margaret on the top of the page and order a Skype with her. For the Knowledge Creative Healing course, click on the link at the top of the page and click Get Started Now.